I just want to welcome everybody to the
Sure.
podcast. We got Jeff Steitzer on. This is the Mythic podcast, Mythic Talk. So we usually kind of bring on the boys and we kind of talk about Halo and stuff. But today it's you're a special guest, so like I got to see you at Dreamhack Atlanta. That was really cool. Did not think you would be there, and we got to talk, so that was very cool. And of course, got your autograph and a picture. That was amazing. And now we're getting to speak, so it's even better, right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, kind of leading into the intro of some of these questions. I'm not sure how far we'll go here, but I got quite a few. How did you first get involved with Bungie and the Halo series?
Well, back in the day, back in 2001, I think it must have been. I mean, that's when the game came out, but I think it's also when we started working on it. I got a call from my agent one day, and she told me I had an audition out at Microsoft, which I'd done before. And it used to be that whenever you got so I drove all the way out to Microsoft and parked my car and went inside, went into a booth, recorded, and everybody did. All the men recorded a little bit of Master Chief, a little bit of an alien who might have been the Arbiter. I don't really know because I it's so long ago. The women all read Cortana, and then both genders at the end of their audition, so they wouldn't strip their gears, had to scream horribly like they were being, uh, murdered, miserably. So we did that. And after it was over, I said, anything else? They went, nope. And I went, okay, great. And so I went home and thought no more about it because that's just the way you do. I mean, you can't sit there and go, ooh, I hope I get this. First of all, nobody knew what it was. It was just a video game, and it might seem like that'd be fun, but nobody knew what it was going to become. So I get a call from my agent saying, hey, congratulations. They want you to play Master Chief in this new game. And I went, oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
So that's that for the moment. And then I hear that all my friends who are in the game locally
Hmm.
are going in and recording, and I haven't heard a word. So now I'm getting a little bit nervous. So I called Jen Taylor, who's an old friend, and I said, "Hey, have you been in to record?" And she went, "Oh, I finished all my stuff a couple of weeks ago." And I thought, "Uh-oh." So I called my agent and I said, "We may have a problem. You may want to call and find out what's going on." She said, "I'm on it." Called me back not that long after. She said, "Well, I got good news and I got bad news." And I said, "Okay." Said the bad news is that Marty got a little bit nervous, got cold feet essentially, because he doesn't know you. We've never worked together. He's decided he wants to go with the guy he's worked with in Chicago, Steve Downs, right? But they want you in the game. That's the good news. They want you to be the announcer. And it was like, what does an announcer do in a game? I mean, a lot of the games that I had watched my kids play or that I had played didn't have an announcer, so I didn't
Yeah.
know. But I thought, yeah, okay, sure, great. And yeah, I think before I went in to record, the sound engineer that I would work with the most, a guy named Jay Wineland, terrific guy, said, they're going to hear you more than anything else in the game. And I said, what? You're kidding. And he went, nope. I said, oh, okay. So we went in, and the day that we were going to record, and first of all, there was security at the front desk. So you had to like bring identification. I'd never had to do that before. So that was sort of the hush nature of this. And then Marty came out. We chatted a little bit, and then he took me back to introduce me to folks and show me what they were working on. So that was the first time I saw a halo ring.
Mm.
And all these other things. I saw a warthog, and he said, "Look at the grass," and it's like, yeah, you can see it waving in the wind. It's like, this is very cool. And then after a while, he said, "All right, let's go into the studio and we'll get to work." And I went, "Okay." So we went in, and he said, "So what are we going to do?" And I said, I don't know. I don't know anything about, what you're looking for." And he said, "Well, all right." He said, "Now, you auditioned for Master Chief, right?" And I said, "Yes, I did." He said, "What did you do?" And I did a little of it. And he went, "Okay, good." And he said, "Can you do like Monster Truck Rally?" I was like, "Monster Truck Rally." And it's like, "Okay, good. But pull that back." And then he said, "You did the alien too?" And I said, "Oh, yes, I did do a bit of an alien voice." And he said, okay, pull that back. And we sort of mixed and matched and put it all together. And in about 20 minutes, he said, I think we got it. And we started recording. And about 4 or 5 days later, I finished the first round of recording. My vocal cords were completely shot at that point because I
Wow.
was doing, stupid things with my voice. I mean, it was not well supported. But yeah, that's how I got involved with Bungie. They had everybody in Seattle who was a voice actor at a certain level, I guess, into audition because Marty, who had worked in Chicago, where they've got a great community of actors, had heard that Seattle had a great community of voice actors, and he thought, yeah, let's see everybody
Heck
because
yeah.
obviously, yeah, if he could do it all locally, that saves them a lot of money. They don't have to rent a studio in LA or fly anybody up, you know, which is how it worked out.
That's awesome. That's an amazing story, actually. I love
Yeah.
that. That you had the alien voice, the monster truck rally voice, and you kind of like interweave the two, like tone it down a little bit.
Yeah.
That's pretty good stuff.
Yeah. And you can still sort of hear traces of it. There's sort of a kind of quality about the monster truck rally there, and a little bit of the alien also goes in there. But I've sort of lost that British, thing because all the aliens are always Brits. All the bad guys in sci-fi are always Brits.
They're always
Um,
Brits.
always
The
Brits.
redcoats.
Yep, absolutely.
hmm My next question brings me to okay. Do you remember your first recording session as the Halo announcer? You kind of talked about that, obviously. Is there
Yeah,
anything
I mean,
specific?
I do. I mean, basically what happened was is when I started recording, what they had for the first game, we were at Microsoft itself, and they've got a studio there, and I went into the recording booth, which was, um, you know, comfortably larger than a phone booth might have been back in the day.
Yeah.
And in front of me was a window through which I could see the writer and the sound engineer who would be in charge of the session.
hmm
And then right in front of me, between me and the window, was a music stand with all the sheets of paper on which were all the lines. And I did every line 3 times
Oh wow.
and then just went on down. So let's say I'm doing the kill streaks and I go double kill, double kill, double kill. And they go, okay, we'll take number two. And then we just keep going. In fact, as I recall, we went down through like a sequence of things. I
hmm
might have done like 30 lines, and then they go, okay, let's go back on line number 7. Give me 3 more of those. This is what we're looking for. If there was if they could tell me what the change was. Sometimes it was just do 3 more, and it's like okay. And that's how we worked, not only on that session but on most of the sessions. And what was great about it is sometimes some of the lines are so funny, I think. They make me, laugh. And when I could make the folks in the other room laugh, when they would finish and they'd turn back on the microphone and they'd be howling with laughter, I'd sort of think, yeah, good work. So that was fun. But that was exactly how it worked. And then after about, at about around an hour, they would say, "Do you need a break?" And I had water in the booth, so I could take swigs of water to, keep my vocal cords from getting too crazy inflamed.
yeah.
And I might say, yeah, I could use a little bit because when you're in an airtight booth, you can't have the air on. You can't have air conditioning, so it gets hot. Your
Yeah.
body heat warms it up. And also, there's no circulation. So after a while, and I think I was standing for everything, and that gets a little tiring too. So I'd say, yeah, I could use a little break, and I'd go out and I'd maybe sit for, they had like a little couch or something there, very comfortable, and I'd sit for like 10 minutes, and maybe I'd sip water and just be able to breathe a little bit, and then I'd go back in and go, okay, let's continue, and we would do that for 4-hour sessions. We'd do it for 4 hours straight. Yeah.
Wow.
And that would be a day, as I recall. And then I would go home, and then I'd come in the next day, and we do another 4-hour session. Same setup, same thing. And I did that for 4 days of 4-hour sessions, maybe five. I just remember that recording session for the first game for Combat Evolved took longer than any other subsequent game, even though every time I came in, they very often wanted me to redo lines that had
Hmm.
already appeared in the game. So I would do the double kills and the triple kills and the overkills and the Kilimanjaros and all those things again. And when I asked about that, I said, "Don't you have that, don't you?" They'd say, "Yeah, but it's a year later. We want
Hmm.
your voice to sound like the same voice that's doing everything." And I went, "Oh, okay, that sounds fair." So that's how that
It
worked
sounded
out.
like they wanted a little bit of an updated version, of your current
It was a
name.
year later, and a voice changes. They would also
You know?
always ask me when I go in for other games, at least for the first couple of times, they'd say, "Do you want to listen to what you did last time?" Because it might have been 2 years before,
Yeah,
3 years before. So, and I thought, I think I know what I'm doing, but if it'll make them feel better, sure, let's do that. And I would listen to myself and I'd go, yeah, okay. I think I do that. Great. And then we would record.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
I've thought about getting into voice acting at one point, but I like my job's pretty good, and it would take a long time for me. I'm kind of older now, but I could start at any age, I guess. But I'll be honest. I know that a lot of people have probably tried to imitate your voice at some point, in the past, and I've definitely tried that. Your videos started popping up on the internet. It's been
Yeah.
probably about 4 or 5 years since I started seeing some people, and it looked like they were cameos, and I remember reaching
Yeah.
out to you on there, but it was always a dream of mine to be able to meet you at least, and they never wanted to, or they always had. What was it, Steve and Jen come out to the World Championship, and I always thought you'd maybe be
Yeah.
there, but it was Dreamhack that I actually got to see, so that was really cool.
Well, it's interesting. The way that works out is, and this was explained to me by my agent. I mean, I personally, if I could go out always with Steve and Jen,
Hmm.
that would be great because I enjoy them both. I mean, I've only known Steve since 2020.
Yeah.
It was that late into the history of the game before we met. But Jen, I've known since the beginning and before.
Hmm.
We're old pals. So it's always great to be out with the three of us. But the way it tends to work is Steve, because he's Master Chief and you are Master Chief when you play the game. Basically, he's the one that has the longest lines, the most fans. So if there's a convention they can only afford one of us, they'll take him.
Yeah.
If they can afford two of us, they'll take him and Jen because they are characters in the game. If they can do three, then sometimes I'll get to go as well. Like for instance, this weekend, I'm going to be at the Puyallup Fairgrounds in Puyallup, Washington,
Hmm.
between Tacoma and Seattle, with Steve, Jen, and Tim Didabo,
Oh
who
yeah.
plays Guilty Spark. The
Yeah.
four of us will all be there for the whole weekend. It's going to be great, you know? And then we have another one coming up, I think, in Sacramento later in the year, where we're all going to be there, and somebody else too. I'd originally thought it was going to be Keith David, who I've never met and would love to meet, but I don't think so. I think it's somebody else. I'm not sure exactly who. I think they're going to try and get more of us out together. The agents are this year because it's the anniversary year. So I think, they'll probably try and promote us as like a reunion or, see everybody all at once or something to
That would be
celebrate.
great. That would be great to have everybody in one spot. Halo Fest is going to be probably. I think it's actually supposed to be bigger than the World's Championship this year. And
I think that's right.
I want to say they had about 4 or 5,000 people this year at the World
Wow.
Championship alone. And this is the Halo Fest is going to encompass more than just competitive Halo. There'll be a little bit of that, competitive Halo, but it's going to be more about the story and the aesthetic and the characters. So it would make sense to have everybody there. And they had
Well,
booths out at one time too.
I'm waiting to get confirmation, but I'm certainly hoping that will be the way it works out. Yeah.
I will be there in Seattle that week. I got the tickets. I'm going to the concert, and then
Oh yeah.
and they got a.
That's that. I would love to go to that concert, especially if they can get Marty to come,
Oh
which I
yeah,
think they're working on doing, which would be great. I'd love to see him. He used to go out to conventions on occasion. Maybe he still does. I was with him a couple of times when at conventions, and it was always great
yeah,
just to hang out with him and chat. Because, we're far enough away from the beginning of the whole thing. It's no longer boss employee. It's, two folks who worked on the game. And I've had a chance on one of these occasions, I think we were in Phoenix. We sat in the bar at the end of the day and just shot the shit. It was great. And I learned a lot about his background, which I did not know. I didn't know that he'd been a musician originally and had actually graduated from a very good music school. You know,
hmm
it makes sense because obviously, you look at the music, it's like unbelievably cool.
Oh
He knew
yeah,
what he was doing. But he told stories about different people he got to meet. He talked about meeting Paul McCartney. And it was, things like that. They were just amazing.
yeah. Let me blow this up here. Oh yeah, that's amazing stuff. And I mean, I love all of it. Honestly, I coming to these conventions and meeting people. I'd love to meet people behind the music and the games. I've met a couple of developers and talked to them as well, and it's very interesting just to meet a little bit of this, a little bit of that when it comes to the Halo community. There's a lot of
Sure.
different personalities, a lot of different talents, and that's one thing that makes it really unique, honestly. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, leading into the next question, the thing was, okay, you said that you originally came in to do the voice of Master Chief, then it turned to be the announcer. But when you first recorded for Halo, did you imagine that you would become the sound of victory itself for an entire generation of gamers and be the
No,
narrative glue?
no,
No.
never,
Yeah.
never. Nobody did. Here's the thing that is so hysterical. None of us had any idea that this game would end up being what it was. Generally, as a voice actor, if you get a job, then you get scheduled. It used to be the case where you'd go into the studio
hmm
and you would record for however long it took. And at the end of the job, you'd say, okay, is there anything else you need? And they'd say, nope, this is great. Thanks. We've got it all. And I'd say, okay. And we'd say our goodbyes. And you would walk out and immediately forget that you had ever done it, even if you'd had a wonderful time,
Yeah.
because it's work,
Yeah,
you
it's
know.
work. Yeah.
And you don't leave your job every day going, "Oh, I'm going to remember today," unless something terrible happens. But that never happened to me. So, we at the end of the first recording session, I left and I thought, well, that's fun, but I didn't think there was going to be any more to it than that. And in fact, nobody else did either. Marty, I believe, he said if we sell 60,000 games, I think that's the number, this game will have been a hit, a success. Well, that's nothing
Yeah.
compared to what they did. It was insane. Meanwhile, that's all going on. I know nothing about it because I don't have an Xbox
hmm
and I don't play Halo and I'm not online, going to forums or, different groups. I'm just not, I'm doing theater, which is, what I did, directing and acting and. So I didn't even think about it until the day a couple of years later when I get a call from my agent saying, "Hey, Jeff, remember that game you did a couple of years ago? Halo?" And I went, "Oh, yeah, sure." He
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
"Well, they want you back. They're going to do a sequel." And I said, "Really? Oh, that's cool." I said, "So I guess it must have done pretty well, huh?" And she said, "I don't know. You know, we were so clueless." So no, nobody
No.
had any idea
Yeah.
that, and I certainly had no idea that people would, embrace what I did in the game and walk around impersonating me, which I think is hysterical. Every once in a while at a convention, somebody will come up and they'll start doing the lines to me,
Yeah.
and it's always, and of course, I can't help, I join in. And oftentimes I'll tell them how I do the voice without, while at the same time saying, don't do this too much or you'll ruin your voice. I'm lucky to have cords of steel, so I've never had any issues with it, but except that first time when I got a little toasted, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I've thrown my voice out in the past. I used to practice. One of my friends got me into heavy metal a while back. Not
Oh, yeah.
I'm not into it much anymore, but I used to learn how to do the growls and stuff. And I got after I threw my
Ugh.
voice the first time for about a week, I figured it out without having to actually harm. Even though it's still kind of strenuous, like even if
Yeah,
you figure out a technique that won't harm you, like there's been people who throw their voices out and have to get surgery, so you gotta be careful
I
with it.
know.
No,
Yeah. How low can you use your voice? How low do you go?
if I talk like I could talk like it's like not really low, like my
You
normal.
got it. You need to
Yeah,
get down there and really get low.
like yeah, I can't go that low. It's like
Unfreaking believable.
yeah, I'd have to practice the deep. When it come to growling, I could do that like, like you won't, like get down into it, and I could,
Well, yeah.
like,
Yeah. But you know what? That's how you find out where the voice is, because that's where
hmm
your voice needs to be coming from. So if you growl,
hmm
mm, mm, you can
hmm
feel it in the back of your throat, right?
hmm
Down here.
yeah.
Okay, that's where the voice comes from. So you've got your and then you press down a little bit. Mm, and then you start to add a little attitude. So now you've got the voice, and you start talking, and it's down there. But I mean, the longer you do it, I can feel a little bit of strain
Yeah.
right now because I use the voice when I do cameos.
hmm
So I run through some of the kill streaks and things just for the fun of it. And after recording about 4 or 5 of those, it's like, okay, let's take a little break.
Yeah, I can do some like evil voice. I actually auditioned for a YouTube channel that's now defunct, unfortunately. There was an anime
Oh,
and I became a
ooh,
character, and I got the part. It was just a fun project for them. They were doing like a parody of this cartoon, like this anime. But I got
uh-huh.
I got pretty good at the voice. I was like, "You filthy Saiyans," like getting down in there, like you know. Or if I could be like a character from Halo, I'd be like, uh, you Spartans, like that, and
You
you
Spartan.
Spartans, like kind of,
You Spartan.
you know.
Yeah.
It's I don't really practice it much anymore. I got pretty good at it at one point, and I could get in better. It would sound better in person, but you know, I have to get. I'm one of the people I kind of have to get loud. I don't know why. Like I feel like I have to like really project it to get the full, you know, character, the voice. So I don't want to get too loud because I got family. But yeah, yeah, it's fun. It's fun stuff. But yeah, did you voicing a character that's so tied to adrenaline, competition, and triggering actual dopamine hits when players get kills, around the world? Did it ever change how you see games and competition and performance when it comes to this type of stuff?
Well, again, it's sort of unusual. The games that I was familiar with before getting into this, I mean, I
hmm
my kids played, Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers, Legend of Zelda, those kinds of
Yeah.
games. And I think the sort of oldest game they played before they moved on to do other things was GoldenEye.
Yep.
Remember that? The
Yep.
James Bond one. I was playing puzzle games. So Myst was the first game that absolutely blew my head off. Do you know it at all?
I don't think I've ever heard of Mist actually. No.
Myst is Myst.
Okay.
It was created by two brothers in a garage in Spokane, Washington,
Oh wow.
and it when it dropped, it just completely blew folks away because the artwork, not unlike Halo, was state of the art. It appeared fairly hyper real, but the premise of the whole experience was wild because you would log on to the game and you would find yourself in this environment
Hmm.
on what appeared to be a hill with an ocean sort of off to your side, some trees around you, and a little building in front of you, and nothing else. There was nobody. You didn't
Wow.
encounter anybody in the game. You had to figure out where you were and why you were there
Oh
and
wow.
why it was deserted.
That's kind of
And you had to
creepy.
go.
A little
Oh, it is
bit.
so. It was very haunting. It's a little bit like when you sometimes have a nightmare and you're walking along and there's nobody around and you can't figure out why, you know?
Yeah.
It's that kind of an experience. Occasionally, you see messages that were like video messages that had been left for anybody that came looking,
Wow.
and it's very, very cool. That one, and then the seventh guest, and the 11th hour, and Phantasmagoria. Phantasmagoria was the game that made me decide to get a computer
Oh wow.
because I hadn't had one. Yeah, because I thought, well, if I'm going to be getting auditions for games like this, I should know something about games. So I got myself one of those big old boxy PCs, and I got a bunch of games, including Myst and Seventh Guest, and I played them, as best I could. And I got sucked into it. It's like
It
any
is.
game. You get going, it's like you look at the clock before you start, and you look at it again, and 4 hours have passed, and you
Oh
can't
yeah.
figure out how. It's crazy. Yeah, but wonderful.
That happens to me on Halo, and some other games. But it's weird. I can go play a bunch of other games, and you know, being older for me, it's kind of harder to get into new games. I feel like just because I know what I like. I'm really picky.
Sure.
But man, Halo's like always the one I come back to, and I'm excited that they're keeping it alive. We got a game coming out the end of this year, as we know,
Yes.
and
Yes.
there's rumors that there's two more remakes coming out. We'll see how that goes, and then whatever multiplayer. But yeah, there's other games like you're probably gonna laugh at this one. I took a break from Halo here recently, and I tried out a couple of different arcade games and some other like single players. But there was one that I played called Power Wash Simulator, where
Don't know it at all.
you have a power washer and you clean stuff.
Are you
Yeah,
serious?
yeah, I'm serious.
That sounds hysterical.
It is, but it's really weird because it's kind of it's not like super fun like Halo, but it's like I want to play a game, but I also want to watch TV. Well, I'll put on a podcast, turn the game volume all the way down, and I'll just listen to like a podcast, and I'll just clean stuff.
Oh,
You know.
when I was younger, I might have been able to multitask like that, but I couldn't do it now.
Well, this game
It's
there's
an
not much
either
to it.
or.
This game you're just cleaning dirt, off of stuff, and you can just
I
kind of
understand, but even
yeah.
then, I would have a hard time focusing on both
Yeah.
things at once.
Well, I don't. That's
That's
the only game I've done that
hysterical.
with. But other than that, I
Yeah,
usually don't. Yeah, there's some people that watch TV and play games at the same time, like Halo, and I'm like, I don't know how you do that, but
I
yeah.
don't either.
This game's a unique one. But yeah. So moving on here, what's something about voice acting in Halo that players would genuinely be shocked to learn? Is there anything that you could think
I
of?
don't think so. Nothing shocking at all, really. Um, I think I don't know how. Well, part of it is I don't know what they would be shocked to find out about because I'm behind the curtain, if you
Hmm.
will, helping to make the game. So I know, what goes on to sort of get to where you need to get with the game, and then the fans just encounter it when it's all done.
Hmm.
But and I know what I do. I don't know what everybody else does. I did when I first met Steve, I'd gone in to do the first recording on Infinite, and Jen was there in her little pajamas with the little white dots all over because she does motion capture
Yeah.
for Cortana. Steve does not do motion capture for Chief.
Yeah.
That's done by a guy named Bruce Thomas,
Okay.
who was there in his pajamas and, dots in his face and stuff. And watching them working on that for the cinematics is really interesting.
I bet.
Very, very cool. Yeah. But and of course, most folks are never going to see it.
Yeah.
But there isn't much to see when it comes to me. It's just me in a box,
Yeah.
saying lines, often not being told what they mean,
Yeah, I
you
get that.
know.
Yeah. But,
But and there's nothing really shocking about that aspect of it, the actual recording of it at all, I don't think.
yeah, other than
As
maybe
far as I'm
shooting your voice out completely.
concerned. Well, there's that, but I mean, as I
Yeah.
say, so far I've been lucky and I haven't, completely shredded my chords.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank God.
Do you feel like you've probably said double kill 1,000 times or thousands of times at this point?
Might
Yeah,
have,
yeah. I
sure.
mean, do you think these words still hold meaning, and do you think they've transcended into like a kind of meditative chant, at this point? Because
You'd have to ask the people who are playing the game what it does for them. For me, I can't say any of the lines without thinking about the first time I said any of the lines.
yeah,
And the other thing is, the other thing that may surprise, if not shock fans, is that I have said so many lines over the course of 25 years, I don't remember probably half of what I've said. Because every once in a while, somebody will say, my favorite line you said was oddball, oddball, and it's like, I forgot I said oddball, you
yeah.
know? So it's like, oh, I should throw oddball into my cameos a bit more, because there are people who like it. Or I'm trying to think of some of the others that people were like, oh, I love that line. It was like, oh, yeah, I'd totally forgotten I did that one. There were so many of them.
Oh, I bet there's a ton of them. Yeah. Is there one phrase in particular that ever gave you the chills? Even after all these years, like, is there something that you said?
Well, my people ask me what my favorite lines are. There are two.
Okay.
One of them is the one that's actually in the game, which is unfrickin' believable. Love saying that. And I never get tired of saying it. The other was for a line that was supposed to be in the game, did not make it into the game. It was based on a real life incident. You probably know this.
Yeah.
Some of your fans may, where the vice president of the United States shot a fellow hunter either in the back or the face. I can't remember which, but it was just like, what? So the writers decided it would be funny if whenever you shot one of your teammates, like once, and it was going to be like once every 100 times, as I recall, you would hear me say, Cheney Mania. Excuse me. And so we recorded that many times because they were like, do it again, do it again. And it was like, all right. And they were very amused by it. Then when the game came out, somebody said that didn't make it into the game, and I said, "What do you mean?" And they said, "Yeah, the folks at the top said not going to happen." And I never heard what the reason was. I mean, I can imagine what the reason was,
Yeah.
because it seemed like it was making fun of a fairly important person on one side of the political spectrum, and I'm sure they didn't want to alienate anybody if they could.
Yeah.
But I've since thought, well, maybe what it really was that because of when Halo is set, way off in the future, it's like maybe the fact that there is no Dick Cheney in the universe at
Hmm.
that point, it wouldn't make sense. It would be too out of the game, you know?
Gotcha. Yeah. Not
That
immersive.
at
Yeah.
least seems like a good rationale, and they're welcome to use that over at Microsoft if they want to. If that is the real
is
season, I don't mind.
is that one of the lines you wish you that could have made it into the final game? Obviously,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I've told that story enough on various podcasts and on YouTube and on my TikTok channel at one point. That people will come up and they'll ask me to say it like at conventions, and I'm always happy to do that. You know.
But how much direction, like did the developers give you guys, like far as tone and how to improvise? Did they give you much on that end?
The direction that I would get in the Bungie years was pretty straightforward. It would be okay, on this line, we want to ratchet up the tension just a little bit. So, you've got, like 30 minutes remaining. You'd have
Yeah.
that. And then 15 minutes remaining. And you wanted to like lift each one so it was a little bit more excited.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And they would sort of make that point. It's like, okay, make sure you start sort of neutrally enough that by the time you get to 1 minute remaining, there's a sense of like we're almost at the finish line. You know, it's like a football game,
Yeah.
really. You're getting closer to the first down. That's or a touchdown. It's that kind of a thing. So that was the kind of thing they would say. Other than that, I didn't get a lot of explanation. They never really adequately explained why I said zombie killing spree. I said when I got that line, it was like, what? Wait a minute. So are there zombies in the game? And they were like, yeah. And I said, well, can you tell me more about that? And they were like, no, that's the last I heard about it. They never, I think it was the flood, but I don't know.
So yeah, I mean, and when you do the 5 minutes remaining, I'm going to tell you what, or even just the minute remaining, it really sets the pressure in the game.
Right.
So,
And that was the idea.
Mhm.
That was the idea. I was happy to help, do that. Also, it was a lot of fun. It's like when I was doing things like, ball dropped,
Yeah.
there was always a little bit of a sense of like, you sucker. What's wrong with you? Ball dropped. It was sort of disappointing. Um, so that was always fun. And I generally they would just tell me that.
Yeah, it sounds like you that would be a cool twist to kind of add in there a little bit, kind of making fun of the player.
Oh, there
you
was
know.
always a bit of a sense of like, oh, you. Yeah. That's the best you can do. Because, it's like anytime I mean, isn't that what a coach sometimes does to the players when they're messing up?
Yeah.
He'll sort of like give them stuff and go, you know, let's go. Come on,
Let's
So
get
I
on
always
with it.
had that in mind for some of the things when people were messing up. Even something like game over,
Yeah.
had a bit of a sense of like, yeah, too bad,
Too bad. Oh
game
god.
over.
If Halo never existed, what kind of game or universe you think your voice could naturally fit into? Like, is there anything you've ever thought about other games out there?
Well, I've done other games.
Hmm.
Actually, none of them, of course, have had quite the impact that Halo has.
Yeah.
I think some of the first games I did were children's games. There was a company in Seattle called Humongous,
Yeah.
and they made a series of different games with different protagonists, and they were for littler kids. So there was Pajama Sam, Freddy Fish, and I think Spy Fox, maybe.
Hmm.
I did voices on those, but those were just kind of, cartoony, goofy voices and,
Yeah. Oh, okay.
whatever they needed. I was like a lion in one. I think I was a toaster in one, you know. Um, But I did those, and then I did a game called No One Lives Forever, and I played this kind of slightly effete sort of British character, who was sort of phlegmatic and stuff, as I recall. And then I played an evil Russian in the sequel to that game, I think. Um, I'm in Grand Theft Auto, uh,
Really?
Vice City Stories, I think is that what it's called.
Okay, yeah, the
Oh,
expansion. Yeah.
yeah. So what happened is they've got a radio in the cars, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You can change the channels.
Hmm.
One of the channels they wanted to add was like an old time radio channel. So we went in and we recorded an episode, a horror episode, as I recall. Um, and there were four actors. I played two characters. I played a police chief in this town, a little town. And then I played sort of a fisherman kind of a guy, like somebody you might find in Maine, sort of thing,
Yeah.
which was great fun. And, we did it we were all in one room, which is not normally how they would record this kind of stuff, but it's how they recorded radio dramas. So we each had a microphone. We were in the four corners of the room, and we had pages just like they would have had. And you drop your page on the floor just like they did back in the days when they were doing Fibber McGee and Molly or Gunsmoke or Dragnet or any of those shows. It was great fun. That's in that game.
Gotcha. That's
So
actually
as far as any other game, I'm certainly always available. I've auditioned for other games, and so far have not had anything necessarily take yet. But I live in hope because I'd love to be in another game as well and do something totally different. You
yeah.
know,
I could see that happening one day. I don't see why not. It just I guess depends on the game, obviously.
sure.
But we got you in Halo. It's good. Yeah, but hey, I've seen you in some other works. I think I saw you in a movie. You played a janitor in one movie. I'm not can't recall the name of the movie. I know it was you because it was your face.
Metal Lords is the
Yes,
name of the movie,
that's what it
and it's
is.
about that was written by one of the writers for Game of Thrones.
Oh wow. Okay, did not know
Yes.
that.
And he and his partner, it was Benioff and what are their names? I can't remember. Nice, really nice guys. They were both there. They used to write as a team on Game of Thrones. And this one, it was just written by one of the guys, but the other guy was there as a producer for them as well. They had a
Hmm.
deal with Netflix, and this was the first thing that they wanted to do. So my agent sent me the audition. He said, "I don't know if you're going to want to do this. I mean, there's like only one scene with lines."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, what the heck?" So I went ahead and I auditioned, and mostly I was just, reacting to the kids because I thought they were like really stupid and stuff. And then I had one little scene with the girl, which had two more lines that ended up in the movie because at that point they didn't need to hear from the janitor at that point. But we recorded, I think there were like four or five scenes all together that I was in, and it was during COVID.
Oh okay. Yeah.
So I drove down to Portland from Seattle, where I live, and it was like intense because every day you had to get tested first thing
Oh
before you
wow.
could come on set. And then there were three areas in the school that we were in filming that. There was an area that was red. Is that right? Or was it green? I can't remember what the colors were. But there was one area where you didn't have to be masked. There was another area where you needed to be masked to get closer to the action of the filming. And then the third area, everybody was masked and they were all in like hazmat outfits, plastic. I mean, it was like intense.
Wow.
And so you'd get there, everybody would get on set with your mask, and then they said, okay, we're going to do a rehearsal. You'd take your mask off and set it someplace, and you would do the rehearsal. Then you go and put your mask on immediately. All right, masks back on. So I had finished. I showed up on a Saturday. So that was one week. I was hired by the week. They put me on a weekly salary. And then the next week, I had out of a week of shooting, I was only called on 2 days. But there was nothing I could do. I was put up in a hotel, but there were no restaurants open. There was a grocery store open, so I could bring food back to my room. But there was no hot food or anything like that unless you were on set,
Hmm.
because there they had, they always have food that they serve you
Yeah.
for the various meals. And so I was just hanging out. And then I was supposed to be called for a final day. I think it was on a Saturday. And I was waiting for my call, waiting for my call. It didn't come the night before, which is normally when it came. Next morning, I woke up. I hadn't heard anything. I called the producer. Finally got a call. Producer said, Jeff, I'm sorry we haven't been in touch before now. Turns out one of the crew tested positive with COVID. So we're going to shut down for 2 weeks.
Oh no.
And I went, oh my God. I said, well, do I have to stay here for 2 weeks? Could I drive home and then come back when you need me for the one scene that I had left? And they said, yes, just be careful, on the road. I went, okay, so I get to go home. What I did not realize was I still got paid. So then I came back and I did one more day, and it was in a fifth week. I ended up being paid for 5 weeks of work
Oh wow.
for the very little. I'm in that movie maybe 2.5 minutes, I would guess, right?
Yeah.
And I was paid for 5 weeks. So that was sort of what I remember most about that experience, except that the young kids who played the leads were amazing. They were so cool. Really sweet kids. Really nice kids.
That's a great.
That was
Yeah, this
fun.
the movie was pretty good. I remember watching it here at home, and I was like, I couldn't believe that you were in the movie. I was like, what? Jeff Steitzer's in the movie? I was like, no way. I was like,
I've
this
done a
is
few
cool.
movies and I did a television series. 4 episodes. I was brought in halfway through. They did a reboot of The Fugitive.
Hmm.
That film with Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones.
Oh yeah.
They decided to do it again on TV, which is where it had first been done back in the 60s. This time it was Tim Daly as Kimball, the doctor, who we're chasing, and Michael T. Williamson, who had been Bubba Gump in Forrest Gump, as Lieutenant Gerard. And in the when they first started working on the series, they decided to give Gerard a family so that, in between, him chasing Kimball, he was dealing with problems with his family. They decided after half a season, it's like, that's not really working too well. So they brought in like four of us from various places to play like drug enforcement person, FBI. No, we were all FBI. What were you, FBI? I was a Cook County sheriff. Kate Walsh, who was on Grey's Anatomy and then her own series, Private Practice, she was one of the people. There was a guy who had been on Beverly Hills 90210, who was one of the regular, recurring characters.
Hmm.
And then Anthony Quinn's son, Francisco, was in only one episode. Um, I don't know what went wrong, but we had a point where, in TV, you don't waste time.
Yeah.
And he had like some scene he could not get his lines right. So after about 16 takes, he finally got it,
Wow.
but then they never brought him back. And it was really heartbreaking because he was a nice guy.
Yeah.
And that sometimes that happens to people. It's tough.
Yeah.
So
That
anyway,
is.
and I did that and I thought, yeah, I could do this forever. This is great work. Loads of fun.
Oh, I bet it is. I bet it's a lot of fun.
It is.
What would you think or say is the most unexpected place or situation where someone's recognized your voice? Um,
Oh,
any of those?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, one of my favorite places, I was doing a play, I was acting, playing Malvolio in Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. He's the antagonist, the one that causes trouble for various characters, and they get even with him
Hmm.
by trying to convince him he's lost his mind. Um, so we had done a performance. It was a school show, and I had by that time decided I was going to start putting, that credit in my bio. It was, seemed to be the thing that was I was going to be most famous for. And we were all sitting in a line in chairs after the show. They'd brought out chairs when we were doing stuff, and people in the audience, all kids, teenagers, were asking questions. And one girl stood up and she said, "This question is for Malvolio. Uh, on your bio, it says that you do a voice on Halo. What voice do you do?" And I said, "Oh, well, I'm the announcer, the voice of God announcer. I'm the one that says stuff like kill-tacular." And when I did that, the entire audience screamed. A full audience of like 600 people screamed. And it was like, oh, okay. Because I really hadn't had that experience at that point. The
Hmm.
other act, and then after that, that's all anybody wanted to talk about was to listen to me talk about that game. And I glanced at one point over at my fellow actors. They were just glaring at me like, well, if I'd known it was going to be you and your fans, I would have stayed home. It
Oh,
was
good.
fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. But when coming back to Halo, what do you think's the most surprising part of the fan community over the years? Having all these
I
interactions.
I think, well, the thing about it is, the fans are amazing. They have an encyclopedic knowledge often of the game.
Hmm.
It's the kind of thing where when you love anything, for instance, when I was growing up in Southern California as a kid, I went crazy for anything Disney.
Okay.
And I got my hands on any book about animation, about Disney, about, his live action films. I saw everything I could see. I used to watch Disneyland on Sunday nights. I watched the Mickey Mouse Club every day after school. I was obsessed with it. That's what the fans of the game are like to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They
Oh,
know
yeah.
every corner of the universe. There are times when I sit there going, "Well, I don't know exactly what they're talking about. I have to go home and open up my Halo encyclopedia again and find out what that is." It's amazing to me. They
There's
know more about the games than any of us. I guarantee
oh
you.
well, there's some people out there that even amaze me. I'm more of a competitive player. I like to play the multiplayer.
Yes.
So yeah, when it comes to that, I know the ins and outs of that, and I could probably lose you in that as well. But you got the people over here that are all about the story and the campaign, and like I'm like,
And
they'll name a ship or a weapon that has a bunch of numbers. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
totally. I know exactly. And they also read all the books.
Yep, yep.
And I don't know how many books there are, but there've got to be like close to 100 books. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
there's a lot
easy,
of books
something like
out
that.
there, and that's all, so far as I know, it's all part of the official canon of the Halo lore, I think. So, or there's
Supposed to be.
backstories before the action of the games. There's other, characters that take the lead in various books and
Oh yeah,
stuff. It's amazing to me,
and I've
you
read a
know.
few of them, so I know a little bit. But they've had some people come out and do these trivia like contests at the
Oh,
events, and man, I couldn't answer a single question. Like
I'd be so disappointing.
yeah, like they asked me some about some ship or something, and I was like, I don't know any ship names besides like two or three that were in the video game because some of these
Yeah,
were
yeah, yeah.
books, and I'm like, I haven't even read that book. Like I don't know. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, I was sort of the same way.
yeah. I'm trying to think. There's some more questions here. There's some pretty good ones. We've kind of went in depth, and you've given us some good stories. If you could go back in time and record one completely like absurd line just to mess with players, whether it be roasting a mid match or like you talked about that, like oh no, they dropped the oddball. Is there anything that you would go back and
Yeah.
record if you could?
Well, one of the things that people ask me often is, do you come up with any of the lines for the game?
Hmm.
And I always tell them, no, never. Do
Yeah.
you improvise? I've never improvised in the game. It's not that kind of a thing because the writers have gone to great lengths to do specific things that they want in the game and that they want to hear me say,
Yeah.
and it's generally tied to the action of the game. So no, they've never asked me, I've never ever volunteered anything. So in terms of going back and injecting a line, um, nothing comes to mind for me right away. It's a great question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it would be something, I'm sure quite ridiculous and inappropriate, but I don't have any specific instance of it.
Yeah, I got some fun questions here. If Cortana and the
Sure.
Halo announcer had to co-commentate a firefight, who would steal the show?
Um, that's a very good question. I have no idea because, I think I get a little bit more excited than Cortana does.
Hmm.
Because Cortana, after all, is the person who is in charge. So she doesn't often get hysterical,
Yeah. Yeah.
or, in terms of like a lot of action and drama and stuff going on, I can imagine my voice doing that more than her, but it's Cortana. So, and I not only am good friends with Jen, but I adore her and the work she does in the game. So if it were up to me, I'd rather hear her than me because I hear me in my head all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. uh, so yeah, sometimes fans joke that Halo announcer is God. You've said you're the multiplayer announcer, the God of Halo, in the Halo universe. If there was anything you could say, like far as commandments go, what would be your divine commandments for Spartans, like in the game? Like if you thought about it as in the game, is there anything you could say that would be cool?
Oh, probably thou shalt finish the fight. Something like that. I should mention, I don't call myself that. That is actually what was on my contract. When I signed my first contract, it was to voice the voice of God multiplayer announcer for Halo.
Yeah.
So when people said, "What'd you do in the game?" I'd say, "Well, I'm the voice of God multiplayer announcer." I didn't make that name up for myself at all. And then somebody said, "Yeah, I noticed you call yourself the voice of God. What's that all about?" And I said, "Well, that's what I am." And they said, "Well, in the credits, you're just listed as announcer." And I went, "What?" So I went and I looked at the credits, and sure enough, there I was, announcer. And it's like, what? So I went back and looked at my contract, and it's like, no, there it is right there. See, that's what they contracted me for. But it doesn't really matter. I still go ahead and say it. It's
Right.
fun to say. Yeah.
If you could have like a rival, like an evil AI announcer, like, well, not AI, but an evil announcer, how would he sound, and what would his catchphrase be if you could think of something?
Oh God. If there was like somebody who was going after me or something, and if it was a conflict between me and another AI kind of thing,
Yeah, like if he
it
was
would have
like
to be
you
as
got.
different. It would have to be as different from me as possible. So I would imagine I would probably go something sort of effete like this, because that would be a good contrast. You
Ooh.
know, you call yourself the voice of God, do you? Well, we'll see about that.
Oh, that's awesome. Here's another fun question. What would the announcer say if he walked into a room full of gamers arguing about which Halo is the best?
Oh, oh, um, oh, gee. You mean which one do I think is the best? Would I?
Or what would you just say to him? They're arguing about it, and you like, you just walk in and you're off the top of your head. What would you say if they're having like an all out like debate? Doesn't have to be like your best game. It could just be like something you say to them.
I don't know what I would say. That's a
I,
very good question.
I thought it would be a kind of hard one. These were very specific.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, I would imagine if I came in, and a bunch of people were arguing about, what their favorite game is, that would probably stop when they realized that I was there, you know?
Probably, yep.
So it's
Oh
not
shit!
like I'd have to say much of anything at all. It's I don't know what I would say, you know.
Well, what was your? We'll say this. What was your favorite Halo to work on? Do you have a favorite like time you went in to record lines?
Probably the first one because I spent more time on it than I did any other game.
Oh,
That's
okay.
all. And the other thing about it is that remember, they didn't exactly know what the game wanted to be until they'd been working at it
Mm-hmm.
over the course of the year. So I recorded a lot of lines that did not make it into the game. We've got blue team and red team, but there used to be like 10 teams, yellow team, brown team, blue team. No, we did that one. Green team. They were all there. So, when I would start the thing off, I'd have like, red team, go, blue team, go, green team, go. And I would just go down that list.
Yeah,
And anytime one of the teams did something where I had to shout at them, I had to do it for all of them.
that's
So
crazy.
that took a little while. Yeah. And then, the game comes out and it's like, well, they're not exactly doing that. I think they decided at some point, that's probably more teams than we need, you know.
Yeah,
I think later they added, you could maybe have your own team and it would be a different color, but
yeah.
I
At
can't.
some point, like Halo 3, I think they added different colors, but they didn't really have like a name for them. It was just kind of like yellow,
Yeah,
blue, whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But we used to have, stuff that I said about that. Yeah.
So in the age of, I know you've probably seen AI going around the hemisphere. It's all over the world, with the cloning technology of being able to clone your voice, which is really odd, but kind of cool sometimes. We've seen, I don't know if we've seen clones of your voice, but definitely seen it with other voice actors, or
Yeah.
just actors in general. With what's who played Darth Vader? James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones.
He signed over his rights upon passing to use his voice. But we know that people can use this technology without the approval of
Yeah.
actors and
Yeah.
stuff. If people were to use your voice, ethically, what would your rule book say about that? Because that's very concerning. I would say.
Well, I mean, obviously I'd prefer they didn't,
Yes, obviously,
but as you say, it's like it's so wide open and there are no rules really.
there's not.
Um, It's one of the reasons that the AFTRA people struck, which is the American Federation of Radio and Television Actors or something
Hmm.
like that, was because they were finally concerned about AI. I mean, they were very late to the table on this issue, but now they're going, oh, wait a minute, they're going to steal, you know, our actors' looks and their voices and, having them do things that they never actually did or and then they won't get paid for. That's sort of the only concern that I would have is that and I don't know, there may very well come a time when they will be able to do it so brilliantly I would think I had said the line, you know but right now I think I'd be able to tell the difference, and
You
not
can.
only because of course I might remember, but also I would probably remember if I'd said something like I was saying in an AI video. But the other thing is that in order to get the profile for an actor's voice, they are working with something they've already done or said,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's not the way we work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As we go forward, we are the sum of everything we've experienced in our lives, and our lives continue. So we're not standing still. right?
Yeah.
And there are all sorts of ideas and creative things that are, founded in our personalities, our histories, all that kind of stuff. Unless you had access to our entire lives, you could never quite replicate what we might be able to come up with. Not to say
That's
we
very
would
true.
always, but you know, I think it would be tricky. I mean, I found it interesting. I just watched Captain Marvel last night, where, of course, they youthen both Sam Jackson and the guy who plays Coulson, Scott Gregg. No, Clark Gregg. What am I doing? He's a wonderful actor. I really love it. And you sort of go, that's pretty good, but it's not them. You know.
Yeah.
They did a better job with Harrison Ford in The Dial of Destiny. It was kind of like, dang, I would have thought that was filmed 40 years ago,
Right.
and it wasn't. So, and with CGI, I remember watching the whole scene on the bus in Shang-Chi, thinking, how the hell were they ever able to do this on San Francisco streets? Well, the answer was they didn't. All of it took place in a studio, and it was all CGI, that entire sequence,
That's crazy.
including everything. That from when you were out inside the bus and stuff, it's like, oh, okay.
They're
Hanging
clever
off
with it.
the bus and stuff. It was fascinating. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think the only thing that I would be now a little upset about would be the prospect of losing the opportunity to do the work, and
Yes.
then
Yes.
certainly being able to earn something from the
Yes.
use of my voice. That's all I would care about.
And everybody can find you on Cameo, right? If they want.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll have
Oh
a
yeah.
link down below, so you can go find
Oh
Dev.
great.
Yeah,
Oh
we'll put
good.
that for you. That's no big deal, but and I've hit you up on Cameo before, and numerous other people, and so they always have that outlet. AI is
But
not
you
the
know
best
what?
of everything.
There's one other place where they can find me, Corey, and
Oh, yeah.
it is at my website,
Oh,
which is Jeff Steitzer Voice Actor, as if it were all one word,
okay,
all lowercase, .com.
okay.
Now, you were talking about having an interest in getting into voice acting.
Hmm.
If you go to the site and look in the menu, one of the things you'll see are blogs. And I
Okay.
haven't done one in quite some time. I really need to get off my duff and do some new blog articles. But I did a whole series about voice acting because so many people say, I'm interested in doing voice acting. How do I get started? What do I need to know? And, they'll say, we only have like 30 seconds. Can I ask you that question? It's like, no, it's a huge question.
Yeah.
It's like any job. There's equipment you need because you've got to be able to record yourself. You're
Yep.
not just a voice actor, you're an engineer unless you pay somebody else to do it. So you've got to learn all that. There's acting involved. So if you've never done any acting, you need to see if you can, find some ways to get some experience with that, or at least understand what actors do. You know,
Yeah.
you've got to have some place in your home where you can record. Now, in the course of our interview, I've heard your family in the background every so often. Well,
Yep.
you can't hear that when you're doing an audition tape.
Yep.
It has to be as quiet as possible. There's all that kind of stuff. I've got about 9 blog articles that try to cover as much as I can. And each article includes links to other sites where you can learn more about VO.
Oh, okay.
So
That's really cool.
and there's also a contact form there where if you want to pursue this even further, you can get in touch with me personally and I answer all the submission forms.
That's awesome. That's good to know. I didn't even know you had
Okay.
a website, so that's cool. I'll have to check
Yeah.
that out, and I'll
I got
put
to
a
go
link
in
to
and
that.
start, and I'm getting bored with this, so I've got to go in and change some of the visuals and things, and put in some more blog articles, and just play with it, which I'll probably do in the coming month or two. But yeah,
Yeah, and I've had looked into it. I went to a convention here in Tennessee, and there was
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to think of the voice actor's name. I'm blanking right now, but he voiced Shao Kahn in Mortal Kombat, the character.
Oh,
And
wow.
he did some
Cool.
work, and he was a character, a villain in Dragon Ball Z, the anime as well. And
Yeah, yeah.
he had like a little shindig where you could go down there for the weekend. And I thought about it. It's about 4 hours away. I thought about doing that,
Really?
but yeah, and I've got a little equipment. I don't have nothing like you got to make it sound good. You know, you'd have to have like a smaller room, probably a little closet or something to kind of record in.
That'll work. That's a
You
good
know,
place. A lot of folks start in their closet.
yeah, and
Ideally, it's a closet you're not using all the time because,
yeah,
if you're in the middle of a project and somebody says, I need to take my coat out, that will change the sound, and a
right,
good engineer will hear it. So you want to be careful about that.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, there are lots of ways anybody can get started without spending a fortune. And in fact, there are these two guys who used to have a YouTube channel called Voiceover Body Shop, or VOBS, where they would talk about voice work and stuff. And one of the points they were always saying is like, don't go out and buy the most expensive microphone
hmm
because you're not going to know how to use it. Don't go out and get a whisper room or a vocal booth that costs $5,000. You
hmm
don't need to. You do that once you start making money
yeah,
doing voice work, and you
yeah.
can do that first.
You
But
gotta
yeah.
start somewhere and learn. You don't want to put all your money into it. Like the voice, I think the thing that really held me back was like, okay, yeah, you actually got to learn how to act, like to a certain degree. You need to
Yeah. Yeah.
know how to do
But you
that.
know what? A good actor is basically just doing what you do in life every day.
Yeah, that's a
That's
good way to
really
put it.
true. Yeah, because think about it. It's kind of like when you and I are having a conversation,
Yeah,
right? And I'm, sort of stumped by a question. You see that, you respond to it, and you offer a little bit of an explanation. That's all acting is, back and forth
yeah,
between two or more people on stage and film, whatever. We're just basically trying to get the other person to do something. If we weren't doing that, we'd never ever talk.
yeah,
We only talk because we're trying to make a point with somebody, trying to enlighten them, trying to illuminate something, to amuse them, or to, confront, whatever the verb is. That's what we're doing to get a response. And generally, we know what that response ideally should be. That's all.
yeah. And that's I've thought about it like that too. Like just trying to think like, okay, how would I respond to this person? Like you might watch a movie and you're thinking like, man, I could do. You might watch a really bad movie, and think like, dang, these actors. I feel like I could. You ever thought? I'm sure somebody's watched and they thought
Sure.
about that process, like how they would respond to
Yeah.
the scene. So very interesting stuff to think about. It's very
Yeah.
cool. I would assume it's very hard though, like to get good at it, like really good at it. But you just practice, I guess, like everything else.
Well, like everything else, that's exactly right. I mean, nobody springs into the arena completely accomplished,
Yeah,
you know? It can be fun sometimes to go back and see early work by different people. A good example of that is Tom Cruise. You go back and see him in his early films, and he's kind of getting by in this cocky attitude and this great big grin he has.
yeah,
One of the things that I found interesting is in the recent films, even in the Mission Impossible films, you look at the first film and then you look at the last one, and he's grown so incredibly as an actor because he knows he doesn't have to do as much, you
yeah,
know? He knows that the camera is going to be watching him very closely and catching what he does, so he doesn't have to push it at all. He can do something very simply and it'll read on
yeah.
a screen. He's very smart, very smart.
And those little
And
things really set it off.
totally, totally.
hmm
Yeah, it's so interesting.
Yeah, I go watch, like a B tier actor and an A tier actor. And there's like this huge difference. Whereas like an A tier actor is really, it just shows in their face. Like it's
Yeah.
incredible. And then their words, like it doesn't feel, forced at all. It feels like it's
It
something
feels like
natural.
they're doing what we're doing right now, that talking over each other. We're
Yeah.
trying to, we get to a certain point and we change tack because we don't know. We know exactly, we stumble a bit on our, they know how to do all of that stuff without it becoming tedious.
Hmm.
They're very, the best actors are very accomplished at that.
Yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, I don't know how much longer you want to go. I got a couple. I got some
Well,
good
I was
questions here.
just about to say we are almost out of time for the Zoom. I
Oh,
set it
okay.
for an hour and a half, and we've just about got there.
Yep.
So if you wanted to sign off, we probably should do that. Maybe
Yeah.
after one more question, if you
Okay.
like.
Let's see here.
I'd hate to have it just cut off
No, yeah,
all of a
yeah,
sudden.
yeah. That would be terrible. Yeah, I got one easy one here. Maybe depending. If the Halo announcer had a catchphrase for life advice, what would that be?
Oh, oh. Um, Probably simply be curious.
Be curious. That's a good one.
Be curious. Yeah. I think, trying to get out of your own head is a problem everybody has.
Hmm.
Become outer directed and to think about what the other person is going through. Every once in a while, when I'm scrolling through Facebook, and there'll be a little thing, a little some written thing. And one of my favorites is when they suggest that you think about what kind of a day the other person might be having. It's so easy to not take that into account.
Hmm.
If they seem abrupt or grumpy or, dismissive or rude or whatever, we don't know what's happened in their day, you
That's
know?
true.
And I think
Very true.
the more that we can kind of be attentive to other people and worry less about ourselves, you know, wake up to the incredible world we're lucky enough to live in,
Yep.
I think the better off we're going to be. That's my
That's a
thinking
good one. That's a good
these
one.
days. Yeah.
One more before we close out. This is probably simple too. If you could say one last line to the entire Halo community before hanging up the mic, what would that be?
Oh man, you mean the one of the ones I've said?
Or just like no,
Uh,
it doesn't have to be
hmm.
one you said. Just something like, okay, like maybe this is the last Halo game we're ever going to get, for instance. And it was like, okay, your final time to be the announcer, and like but you wanted to say one line going out to all the players. What would
You know
that
what
be?
I'll do? I'll give you a line. My father, who started his career, he didn't stay in it, but he wanted to be a sports announcer.
Okay.
And this was his sign-off line.
Mm.
But I'm going to use it for me. This is Jeff Steitzer, rounding third and heading for home.
Oh, I love it. I love that one.
Isn't that great?
That's awesome.
At
Yeah.
the end of a broadcast, a sports broadcast, he said that. And when I first heard it, I remember thinking, it's like, damn, you know, I thought you were a doofus, but that's a really good line.
Yeah.
And I think it was his. I've never heard of anybody else using it, but it's like rounding third and heading for home. What a great sign off line, right?
That's a good one. A baseball
I'd
reference
probably
there
use
for
that.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, it's been a
Well, listen,
pleasure,
buddy,
man.
thank you so much. For me too. I really have enjoyed it. The best of luck with stuff. Stay in touch. All right.
Yeah, maybe we can do this again one day or something.
I would love to.
Well, you have a great rest of your night, and you said you got some cameos to get to potentially. So,
I do,
yeah.
and I've got only one more thing to say to you because it seems appropriate, and that is game over.